going to give you a little bit of an outline of what we're going to go over today. This is Zipforms Templates. And for those of you who use Zipforms, you know that Zipforms is our form production program. It is provided to you by the company. You don't have to pay for this specifically. DocuSign is an agent elected account that you do pay for, but it does have an integration with Zipforms. So I always like to make the distinction between Zipforms and DocuSign. Zipforms is your form production program. You don't have to do e-signatures in order to use Zipforms. So you can use Zipforms and then email documents and or print them directly from this account. You don't have to have the e-signature portion if that's not something you wish to have. Today I'm going to talk about templates, and templates are like pre-filled out forms or transaction files that don't have transaction specific information. And what I mean by that is if you were going to prepare to work with a buyer or a seller, you may go into your office or into maybe the doc store of NPD office, and you would select the purchase packet, Nebraska or Iowa, depending where you're working. If you were going to work with a new buyer, or you were going to prepare to work with a buyer, but maybe you don't have that buyer yet. You might take one of those blue folders from the wall in the office, or take the digital version from the doc store, and you may fill out information in there that never changes. For instance, if I'm the agent, my information, no matter who the buyer is or who the seller is, that never changes. My broker information never changes. So I can take that packet and I can go to maybe the closing sheet and fill out my broker information, my information, close that blue folder and tuck it away in my desk for the next time I have a buyer, so that when I go to work with a buyer, I can just pull that blue folder out and fill in just the buyer's information and the property information. So what I'm going to show you today is doing that in a digital format in Zipforms. So if you guys can see my Zipforms transactions dashboard, Nikki's giving me a thumbs up, which is awesome. So this is my transactions dashboard. So any transactions, listing or purchase, you'll see I have one right here. It says purchase and one says listing. Any of those that I have that are active are going to be right here on my dashboard. But to create a template to use in the future for a purchase or a listing, I am going to click on the templates tab in the top bar. I actually went in before this. I had like 20 templates and I had so many transactions. I cleaned this all up. So hopefully this looks a little bit better for you guys. So right now, before I start creating a template, I want to start thinking about the different kinds of templates that I might want to use in the future. So the obvious initial ones, maybe I'm going to create a purchase packet and a listing packet, right? So I'm going to have my listing packet already, my purchase packet already. But as I start to create these, start thinking through the different types of templates that you could create. You can be so detailed as to create a purchase packet for a cash buyer, or maybe a purchase packet FHA buyer, VA buyer. Maybe if you're going to create listing templates, you might have just a traditional listing packet, and then maybe you'll also have one that's a vacant listing packet, because it requires different documentation for those different types of properties. Something else that templates is really great at making you efficient with is if you are working with an investor. So if you work with Joe Investor and he is buying many properties, or on the flip side, maybe he's listing a bunch of properties, it would make a lot of sense to create a template that is specific to Joe Investor. So it would include all of his information, all of your information, and then you could just apply that template to the transactions that are specific to Joe Investor, so that you don't have to type his information and your information in each transaction. So this is kind of your blanket, your template. It's kind of going to cover all your different transactions, buy, sell, investors. In our last class on this, we had a really great suggestion from another agent with, as many offers as you're writing with one buyer right now. It might make sense for you guys in this specific market, with the way that the atmosphere is now, to create a template for each buyer that you work with. Because then when you go to create a new transaction, you can just apply that buyer's template to that specific transaction on each offer that you make. So if you make an offer on 1234 Main Street, that one falls through, you're not going to retype that buyer's information into 2675 Dodge Street. Does that make sense? So you will be able to use that template over and over, you know, for the 5 to 10 offers that you're making with your poor buyers before they actually get an accepted contract. Okay. So think about all the templates you can create. I'm going to right now show you how to create a purchase template. So I'm under the templates tab, and just like when you create a transaction, you're going to click on the plus or new. And it's going to look really similar to a transaction. So something to pay attention to is this word right here, template. I'm not creating a transaction. It is just going to be my template. I don't want to put transaction specific information in my templates. So I'm going to select new purchase. And then I get to name my template. So I'm going to make this one Stacy's purchase. Now, if I work in Nebraska and Iowa, I also might want to differentiate between those two states in my name. So I went ahead and put Nebraska there. And then I'm going to select residential. And then my suggestion to you all is do not automatically apply the template to new transactions, because let's say you created multiple purchase transaction templates, multiple purchase templates. If you applied this to every single purchase or residential new transaction, then you wouldn't get to select between those different templates. So I personally like to select every time when I want to use a template versus having it automatically apply. So another cool thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you using the company created template for my personal template. I know that sounds a little confusing, but we're building on templates. If I click select template here, you will see all of these templates in here that say global. Global means it was created by the company. So right here where you see global purchase packet Nebraska 2021, that is identical to grabbing the blue folder from your office. So I'm going to select that, because basically I want to, this is like me grabbing that blue folder, and then when I put my information in it, that's what turns it into Stacy's purchase packet. Okay. Any questions on this before I get into the template? Remember, I muted you all, so please unmute yourself or send it in the chat if you have a question. No? I explained that well? Okay. I'm going to click save. We're going to wait for it to pull in that template. So it's going to take the company template with all those different documents and put it inside of my Stacy's purchase packet Nebraska. So you can see in the top left corner, it's the name of my template. I'm still under the templates tab. And if I am over here to the right hand side a little bit, you can see that we're on the documents tab. If I scroll down, these are all the documents that were in that global purchase packet Nebraska. So they are all pulled into my template here, and now I just have to customize it to me. So the first thing that I like to do is I like to select the documents that I don't want to have in here because I don't need them. For instance, I am not in a team, so I might select this document or anything else pertaining to being in a team and remove it. I personally don't like to have this transaction notes. I just feel like I'm not ever going to use it. So I'm going to click on that checkbox, and then I have those two documents selected. If I go to the top, I now have this delete option. So I'm going to delete those two forms. I'm not on a team. I don't need a blank transaction notes document in my template. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete those. So the first thing I did was deleted what I didn't want. And now for those of you who are not familiar with Zipforms, I'm going to go into what we call the cover sheet. The cover sheet is specific to Zipforms, and it is the kind of what we call the magic form. It makes everything within this transaction speak to one another. So if I put my broker company name in here, it's going to transpose that onto all the other documents within this transaction file. So without the cover sheet in that file, nothing will speak to each other. So I'm just going to go ahead and open my cover sheet. And now I'm going to remember this is a purchase. So I'm not going to fill out listing broker information or property listing. I'm going to put nothing specific to one transaction in this template. I wouldn't enter a property address. I wouldn't enter seller information, but I'm going to come down to where it says selling broker information or buyer's agent. And I'm going to fill this section out because it doesn't matter who my buyer is. This information never changes. Okay, give me just a second here. I'm going to fill this out. You'll see that there's information that populates. Some of it comes from your past history of things that you've filled out. Some of the address information pulls from Google. So you can keep typing to kind of, forego that prompted information, or you can select it as it populates.
A feature that I like on this zip form is that over here on the left side of the screen, there's a button that says full screen, and you can make that document larger so it's easier to see on your eyes. If you kind of like me and you just don't like that little print, you can hit that full screen and it makes it bigger.
I'll do that for you, Nikki.
Thanks, Stacy.
All right. So my information never changes no matter who I'm working with. You can see my history populated there. I can add my MLS ID. Let's just pretend that it's all my ID numbers. Look at these, they're all the same, 1, 2, 3, 4. You would have real license numbers and you would put those in here. And then let's think through, if I'm working with a buyer, what else never changes? So 9 times out of 10, as the buyer's agent, I get to select the title company and let's say pest inspection or termite. So maybe I use the same people 9 times out of 10 for those. There's always going to be the one where you didn't get to choose, or for some reason you had to go with another company. I still think it would be better to put in the ones that you use 9 times out of 10 and have to, delete it and retype it in the 1 out of 10 than type it every single time. So as I scroll down this page, we're going to find those fields and go ahead and fill them in just to show you that you can put as much in here as you want to. I'm trying to remember, it's not, I don't know that it's the same companies anymore, but than when I was doing this last. So I know that there's like different names, Bugsy and all that. Buyer's lender, that will be specific to a buyer. Title and escrow. Let's say I always use Title Core National. I always use, trying to think who still, I'll just put Lisa Avazon. I can put their phone number in here. I can put their email address. I can fill out all this information right here in my transaction cover sheet. If I want to get out of that full print, I can click on, or full screen, I can click on this normal button right here. And it takes me back to this view. It just popped me back up to the top of this document. But if I scroll back down, you'll see that I'm still in the same document. What else do I need to make sure is in every single transaction that I do? The BC fee. Now, again, this may change with some of your transactions, but 9 times out of 10, you need to collect for this. So if you go ahead and put it in here now, it will help you to remember and not miss out on that fee that you need to collect for on your purchase agreement. Any questions on the cover sheet and the things that we could fill out, or suggestion of things that we could fill out ahead of time? Sounds like there are people in agreement with Nikki and eyeballs being able to see it better with that full screen. Good. Great. Okay, I clicked the back button. You notice I didn't click save, but a saved pop-up appeared because there is a save feature anytime I move around within this program. So it will auto save right there as I move in and out of the documents, and I didn't have to make that, I didn't have to click save. There is a save button, but I didn't have to click it. What else could we fill out ahead of time? Let me think through this. Can we fill out anything on agency? Your managing broker's name and number. So we could put in here Mike Story and his phone number. We could put in Dwan Roquette and his phone number. I don't know their phone numbers, but we're just going to throw one in. So this is going to be the same every time, no matter who your client is, right? And then you'll see up here, where is it? Over on the far left here, there's a save button, but I don't click it because I'm in the habit of just clicking back and letting it do its sweet auto save. So I don't actually click on that. But if you are on a page for a long time and you want to make sure you click save, please feel free to do that. Okay, I think that's the most that I can fill out on this template. And for some of you, that's all you need to do for your transaction, sorry, for your template. For those of you that are looking for a little more for your template, I'm going to walk you through a couple more things. So if I were an agent and I was creating a template, I would want to have some folders. So at the top here, you'll see an add folder button. Let's talk through the different folders that we could create that could organize this a little better. So as you start to use Zipforms, you'll start to see the documents that are in your transactions or your templates right now. They all have that blue Zipforms banner in the bottom right corner. So those tell me that these are the documents that originate in Zipforms. They are the ones that will speak to each other and share information. But as soon as you send them out, maybe to get signatures, maybe you email them, maybe you print them, they become just flat PDFs. So you may want to create a folder that will contain all of these Zipforms documents. And what I like to call these are my working documents. These are the ones that can be modified. They are the ones that will speak to each other. They originate here. You could create a folder for what are your working documents. Another folder that you might create if we're thinking through a purchase transaction, maybe you will have a folder where you put all buyer signed documents. So you all know, you work with a buyer, you get that purchase agreement signed by your buyer and you send it over, you're going to end up with then a copy of just your buyer signatures. And then later you're going to have seller signatures added to those same documents. So then maybe your third folder would be fully executed contract or fully executed documents. So I'm just going to create a few folders in here so that you can see what that would look like. I click the add folder button and I can say working documents for Zipforms documents there. So if I click OK, do you guys see on the left-hand side, I have my large folder where all of these documents are living, and then I have the folder that I just created. I'm going to create different folders, and then I'm going to show you how to add them to those folders. So I'm going to add my other two folders, buyer signed, and click OK. It's going to populate underneath working documents over here on the left-hand side. My folder was created successfully. And then I'm going to create another folder called fully executed contract or documents, whatever you want it to be. You may find more reasons to create documents or create folders than I'm even talking about. Maybe you like to keep all of your disclosures in a folder, or you could really break it out however you like to organize your file. But I'm just going to give you some options here of how you could really organize this file before you even have it working with a buyer. So what's nice is that I'm creating these folders in a template, which means when I go to apply this template to a transaction, all of these things that I'm creating right now are going to pull into those transactions. For those of you who use DocuSign integrated with Zipforms, you know that when you click e-sign, you can actually select a folder for that signed document to come back into Zipforms. If you have these folders created ahead of time, then when I send that purchase agreement through DocuSign, I can say, hey, once that's signed, I want that dropped back into my buyer signed folder. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm going to show you how to move these. So let's say I wanted to move these three into what I called my working documents folder. As I clicked on a document, you'll see a bunch more options appeared in my toolbar up here, and one of them is called Move. So I can click Move, and I can select the folder I want those documents to live in. So I can click Working Documents and then Move here, and it's going to take those documents outside of my main folder and put them into that subfolder. In just a minute here. Oh, I think it did, but everything kind of moved around. So I'm going to go through and do a bunch just so I can show you a little bit more what this looks like. So I'm going to choose a bunch of them and put them in there. I'm going to go to that move button. I'm going to put them in my working documents, move them here. I just think it's really helpful when you look at a transaction, if that working document that's labeled purchase agreement is in a folder, and then you also have one that's a purchase agreement, but it's just signed by your buyers, and you have a purchase agreement that's fully executed, it'd be really nice to know where to find those because they all kind of have the same label, right? So this is just a really easy way to do that so that you don't have all of them on one screen in one big folder. And you have to kind of sift through them. So just picture this, like you took that big blue folder and you put some folders within that folder and you labeled them working documents, buyer signed documents, and fully executed contract. So folders within folders within folders. And you could do a triple layer if you want to. But that is what I created over here on the left-hand side. What kind of questions do you guys have on organization of a folder or a template before I show you how we're going to use the template? Do you guys have questions on this?
Could you go over my archived docs, please?
So they will automatically drop documents in here when you click archive. So every single document has the ability to be archived. I honestly don't know much about it, but it appears in every single folder. I think you can eliminate it, but if you do delete documents, they automatically go into that My Archive Docs. It's kind of like a safe holder, safe or a catch so that you don't lose those documents if you didn't mean to get rid of them.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Now remember, I'm still in my Stacy's Purchase Packet Nebraska template in the templates tab. So I'm going to click back to list. And this is where it's going to show me if I had more than one template, it would appear here. Now, how do I use this template? I've created this, and those of you who are not working with clients right now and you have a little bit of time on your hands, now is the time to be creating these templates. Because when you go to work with a buyer or seller, you are going to be so efficient if these are ready to go. Okay, so let's say I have a buyer and I need to write a purchase contract. I log into Zipforms, and when I log into Zipforms, it always lands me on this transactions tab. So this is where it takes me. Here are my current active transactions here. And when I want to create a new transaction, I'm going to click the new or plus button under the transactions tab. This is going to look similar to how I created that template. So don't get confused. Always make sure you see this wording up here. The other one said new template. This one says new transaction. So I'm going to select new purchase. I've got my buyer, Nikki, that we're going to write a contract today. And so now I get to fill out the transaction information. Now this is specific to my buyer. When you are in the transactions tab, it's specific to your buyer. The template is a general one. that would be for all buyers. But now I'm going to name my folder, and you can decide your naming convention. There's no rule on this. If you like to put the person's name or the property address, often when you are working with a buyer in this current market, putting the property address and the name might be helpful. Totally up to you. I'm going to put North 48th Street, and I'm going to put Nikki Kershaw. Might put a little hyphen there for myself. This set your location, that should be already connected to your office. And then for those of you who do or don't use MLS Connect, I am going to use that feature here today. Last time we tried to show it, it had a little lag, so hopefully it works. I didn't test it ahead of time. But let me click MLS Connect. This is the one where any listing in the MLS, if you put the ID number in here, it will pull the property information and the listing agent's information, the property photo if you choose to include it, the legal description, all those things that are a lot of work to look up. It worked. Hot dog. Okay, so I put in the listing MLS ID. I clicked include the property photo, and then I clicked this find button. And once I click find, this is basically me telling it, yes, that's the right one. So then I'm going to go ahead and click, I'm going to move these, hang on. I'm going to click use listing right here. So now it's going to be a part of my purchase transaction. Remember, I'm writing a purchase contract with my buyer, Nikki, and it is a residential. So I'm just going to keep applying the appropriate categories here. And then it's automatically going to be active. But before I go ahead and click save and open up that transaction, don't skip this select template field. So if I click on this drop down, if you've never created your own templates the way that I just did, you will still have all of these that say global. So even if you don't go in and create your own templates today or in the next few days, you can always come in here and click on Global Purchase Packet Nebraska, Global Purchase Packet Iowa, Global Listing Packet. That is like if you grabbed the blue and yellow folder out of your office, it is the digital version of those documents. So you already have templates available to you created by the company. What they will not have in them are your own information. So you would then in each transaction still have to type in your broker information, your information. It's not a ton. You wouldn't have the organization like you do if you had folders the way I created, but you already have these templates available to you. However, if you've created a template, they would be here at the top and they'll say personal next to them. So you'll see I have the option of personal Stacy's Purchase Packet Nebraska. And when I click on that and then I click save, it will automatically apply everything that I had taken the time to do ahead of time in my template to this specific transaction. So it's going to open up that transaction, which you'll see in the top left corner. There's the home that we're going to write on. I've named my file the property address with my buyer's name. And then it always starts you on the summary tab. This gives you kind of a really quick snapshot of this whole transaction. Those of you who are used to Zipforms and you know it very well, we will typically, best practice is to go straight to the documents tab right here. If I click on documents, look at that. All those folders that I had created in my template are automatically applied to this specific transaction. So then when I'm ready to find my working documents, I know I click on that folder and this is where they live. There's my closing sheet, my purchase agreement. When I have buyer signed documents, I can put them here. If I have the fully executed contract, they'd be here. Let me go back to the main folder. I'm sorry, was there a question? No? Okay. I'm going to open up this cover sheet. Remember, we added some information to this cover sheet. That is automatically all going to be in here. So now all I have to do is fill out the transaction specific information, like the purchase agreement date and the purchase price and the property address. So if I come back up here, we will add the Oh, the property address was added. That's because I used MLS Connect. So for those of you who use MLS Connect, that is when you are writing a purchase contract. If you're doing a listing, that MLS Connect feature doesn't work because there has to be a live listing for it to pull from. So this works with purchases. It pulled in all the property information already. I didn't have to put any of that in. So now all I have to do is add my buyer's information. So I can come in here and add Nikki Kershaw and Tucker Kershaw. It's her dog. They're buying a house together. It's beautiful in Dundee. I can add her email address. For those of you who use that DocuSign integration, it's important to have the email addresses added here. And then whatever other information I have, I will put in here. So that's creating a specific to this transaction information using that template on a specific transaction. What questions do you guys have on this? Creating the template, using the template. Would it be helpful if I did a listing one also? You want me to do another one? Just walk through the process again? I'm seeing a nod. Yeah? Great. And you guys think of your questions. So that's my purchase contract with Nikki. If I go back to my list, remember I'm on transactions. So there's the contract that I wrote with Nikki using my newly created purchase template. So let's say we're ready to make a listing template. I am going to click again on templates in the top bar. This is where you manage your template. If you needed to go back into that purchase packet template and make changes, you come to the templates tab at the top. Now I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to do a listing template. Remember up here it says the name, new template. I'm going to click listing. I'm going to name it. Maybe I'm going to do Iowa. I don't know if I had anyone Iowa on the call, but not the redheaded stepchild. So I will do one for you too. Listing packet Iowa. So I'm going to apply the company template to my personal template. Click save. It's going to open up that listing template. You can see the name of my template is up here. I'm still under that templates tab and it took me directly to the documents. Here is where I'm going to open up that cover sheet or the magic form. And I'm going to fill out the information that never changes regardless of who my seller is. And that is the information right here in this listing broker information. So again, NP Dodge Real Estate. And again, I can select it from the drop down. Some of that speaks with Google. Some of it is your history. Who has a fax number anymore? I know people do, but it just goes to their email. So it's just a fake fax number. Ooh, we're going to be yelling my name here. Okay. The rest of this property listing information that changes every time. Seller information changes every time. Broker compensation usually doesn't change unless it's, you know, the unique circumstances or specific property types or specific financing. This is typically going to be collected. So I'd rather have it in there and then remove it if it is one of those special circumstances rather than adding it in every time and potentially missing it. So I'm going to add that. There's not a whole lot else that I can add for a listing on this cover sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and click back. Sorry, I didn't put it in full screen, Nikki. I meant to do that.
That's okay.
Okay, and as I scroll down You'll see all the documents in this folder. Those of you who are in Nebraska, this looks a little bit different because I pulled an Iowa listing packet just so that I cover my bases. But again, here I can create folders to organize this better. So maybe I want to have my working documents, and then maybe I want to have my seller signed documents. Execute or documents. Let's just keep consistent here. Okay, I've created my folders and now I can select the documents that I want to appear in those folders. So I can come in here, and as I start to click on the check boxes in the top left corner of the documents, it does give me more options up in my toolbar here. If I selected all those and I wanted to delete them, I could. If I wanted to email them, I could. Print them. Don't print them. They're already digital. Let's not print them. So I'm going to click the move button and then select the folder I want them to appear in. And then you can see you've got just a few documents left in there, and I could create folders for everything, or maybe I want all of those in my working documents. That could be what makes sense to you. You could totally do that. Another thing I didn't do on the purchase template was go to this parties tab. I can add in a party, for instance, and actually, so something that's kind of tricky is it will pull me in since I put it in that cover sheet, but sometimes you have to go out of the file and back into it for it to take effect. But something I wanted to show you was you have this add other on the left-hand side. So I scroll to the bottom, and I can leave it on all parties versus just the sell side, but I can go to the bottom of this list, and it's got buyers, sellers, listing agent and broker, buyers, lenders, sellers, lending company, attorneys, appraisal, all these things, pest control, title company, add other. This is a great option for you to go ahead and add your office admin to your template so that every time you go to maybe email a document from your transaction folder, that admin address will pull up as an option so you don't have to type it every time. So I'm just going to call this an admin, and then I'm going to call it, maybe I'm at a 204 Dodge. I would call it 204 Dodge admin. And then I'm going to do the email. Now, this is not the right email, so don't copy this down. But you guys have in all of your offices, there is a group admin email, and you could put that in here and apply it to every listing that you have. So if I click save, see, now it pulled in me as the listing agent. So this will pull in every time. Every time I use this template, it will automatically add my admin. Maybe your broker needs to be a part of your transactions. For some reason, you want to be able to email to them easily. You can just click that other button and add another party to this transaction. Template. I'm messing with your words here, templates and transactions. Sorry if I'm confusing you. Any questions on this? I just created my listing template. Do you guys want me to show you how I use it again? Yeah, just walk through the whole process. Okay, so I'm gonna click back to list. You see now I've got Stacy's listing template Iowa, Stacy's purchase packet Nebraska. Now I could keep going on and creating tons of templates within here. Remember, again, you could create one for each of your buyers if you're writing lots of contracts. You could create one for an investor that you work with all the time. You could really, get really granular, and you could create one for a cash purchase, a VA purchase, an FHA purchase, a listing and a vacant listing, all the different scenarios that you could create in your mind. You could create that many templates. There's no limit to the number of templates that you can create. It's just going to make that templates list to choose from longer. So let's say I have a new listing that I need to write. I am going to log into Zipforms and click, it's going to land me on the transactions tab. So you can see all my active transactions live here right now, 2 purchases and a listing. Now I need to write a new listing contract. I am going to click that plus new button again under the transactions tab. Remember, it says new transaction, and I'm going to select new listing. Then just like before, I'm going to name it. This one's going to be not as hard as far as naming convention because you're not going to write multiple contracts with a seller. So you could, do the property address or their name or both. There's no wrong way. New. Whatever naming convention makes sense to you. This is like putting your sticky label on your folder that you're going to put your contract in. So that's how I kind of like to picture it, is you've got your sticky label. This is your contract information. Remember, with a listing, MLS Connect feature is not an option because there's not a live active property in the MLS for the information to pull from. So this one, we will fill in the information ourselves. I'll scroll down and click residential. It's going to always be active when I first create it. And then before you click down and click save, this is where we're going to apply the template. So I'm going to open up this tab, and here are my options. Remember, any that you've created, personal ones will be at the top, and global ones or company created templates are right below that. So if you didn't create a listing template packet, you can always come in and use the company one. There's Iowa, or there's Nebraska. So you can always use those. You will just have to put your information in them every time, but it will pull in all the proper documents, just like if you grab that yellow folder at the office. Okay, so I'm going to use Stacy's listing template, Iowa, and then I'm going to click save. That's going to automatically bring in all the documents that I created or added to my template. And it's going to automatically apply those folders. It's going to bring in my admin information that I had added already to my listing template. It opened up the transaction. Here's the name I created. Here is the summary that we land on. So here is where kind of the snapshot view. You can see over here, the parties are already in there. I don't have to go re-add those. But remember, best practice, those of us who use Zipforms more often, you can fill out this screen, but it makes a lot of sense, or it's a lot easier for some of us, most of us, to fill out the information in the documents. So here I am in documents, and I've got the folders that I created previously here, and my cover sheet. I can come in here and see the things that I had already created, which is my information. My information. So now all I have to do is come back in and write in the transaction specific information. Now let's say you use a template to create this transaction, but I need a document that's not in here, or we're down the line a little bit and I need an addendum. You always have this all forms button in the top right corner. So for those of you, if you have the pictures of us, of our faces in the Zoom call over on the right-hand screen, you can move those around, but you actually have this all forms button. And this gives you all your form libraries. So Great Plains MLS, this is where you'll find your input form if you need it, that you didn't already have it, but you also have this NP Dodge library. And you'll see there are some that are already blue. If they're blue, that means that they are already in the transaction. So anything I want to add to the transaction, all I have to do is single click it. Let's say I need a listing agreement addendum. I don't know if there is a specific one for Iowa. Here we go. Nope, purchase. Yeah, there's not one. They probably call it something different. Listing agreement, addendum, Nebraska. Let's pretend that these are for Iowa. So let's say I just needed a listing agreement or an addendum. For those of you that don't know, at the very bottom of this forms list, they all say Z on them because it's alphabetical, but we've just put in a bunch of addendums for you in case you need addendums, multiple addendums for a transaction. They all live down here. There's always going to be one up towards the top. But you always have more down there at the bottom if you need to use more. here. So like listing agreement addendum number 1, Nebraska, the rest of them live down further on the list. I'm just gonna pretend that that's it. When I click on a document in the forms cabinet over here, it automatically turns blue here. And if I click back into my transaction, so just to get out of this, all I have to do is click back here. I did a click. And if I scroll down, anything that I added will just be put right there at the bottom of the list of my documents in my transaction. So if you need to add another document after you already applied a template, if you're further down the line and you need an addendum or you need to add one more document to a transaction, you can always add more documents by clicking on all forms over here. Maybe I need closing sheet Iowa. Now it's been dropped into my file. See that there? So that's how you add more documents to a specific transaction. Any questions? No?
I don't see any questions in the chat.
Okay, I'm going to walk through one more scenario, and that's for those of you who are overwhelmed. This is going to be a quick one. If you're overwhelmed by creating your own templates, let's talk about how to use just the company templates every single time. So let's say you're not going to go build your own ever. That is not a problem. We can still make you more efficient. We can still make sure you're getting all the documents you need by using the company templates. And to do that, you log into Zipforms, which when you log in, again, every time it will land you on this transactions tab. We're not going to touch the templates tab. We're just going to be here on our transactions. Let's say we have a new buyer or seller. We're going to click on new in the transactions tab because we're going to write a new contract. We're going to select which one it is, listing or purchase. I'm just going to do a purchase. And then again, we get that transaction information. This is like creating that sticky note on your folder to label the folder if you were going to do a physical one. So we're just going to name this. I'm just naming it new buyer. And then I'm going to click residential. And then the way to use the company template is to click templates. And if you didn't create your own, you wouldn't have these two here. It would just be the global ones. And you can absolutely do it this way. You can come in and you can say, okay, I am going to write a purchase agreement in Nebraska. I want to grab that digital version of the blue folder by clicking on Purchase Packet Nebraska 2021. And then at the bottom of the page, I'm going to click Save. And it's still going to pull in all those documents, just like if you grabbed that blue folder at the office. It's going to have everything you need for your purchase transaction. It opened up that transaction. If I go to Documents, you will see it doesn't have the folders I created, like in my personal one. It doesn't have all of these documents in a working documents folder. If I open up the cover sheet, it doesn't have any information in it, but you still have the benefit of the company created a template that pulls in all of these documents for you so that you don't miss one. So global purchase packet and global listing packet is just like the blue and the yellow folders. And you can absolutely use these every time, and you don't have to create your own. The ones that you create for yourself are just going to save you so much time in the future. All right, those are our 3 different scenarios. Any questions now before I end this class? Anybody have anything specific that they want to discuss? You're welcome to unmute yourself or put it in the chat. If I can't tell if you're glazed over and just too much at once, or if you guys are like, yep, got it. And if you're either, that's fine. This class has been recorded, so we're going to put it up on our training website. Then you can go back to it and fast forward through the stuff. You don't need to watch, and just get refreshed on it. If you are going to do this yourself, you can reach out to me or Nikki anytime. We can help you create templates. We can just answer questions, whatever you need. Nikki, you have anything to add?
No, Stacy, well done.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We're gonna go over how to incorporate this into DocuSign in a future class, or is it already on library?
You know, it's already on the library, but
Oh, okay.
I could give you 2 more minutes, 3 more minutes. You want me to walk through how to use it with DocuSign?
Okay.
Okay.
Why not?
You feel free to leave if you don't want to watch this. I will not be offended. Kick yourselves out. Okay, I'm going to click on this purchase agreement that I created with Nikki in it.
Okay.
Let's say I'm going to go to my documents. Let's say that I have everything filled out and it's ready to go to her for signatures. Okay. I'll give my system a chance to catch up here. So I was in my working documents and, you know, I added Nikki's information. I remember I added her email address. Let's say I've already entered all the information in this purchase agreement that I need. Everything that I needed, it's in here. I'm just putting a little bit in here so you can see. Okay, so I filled out my purchase agreement. I've filled out my agency disclosures. Now I'm ready to send it to Nikki for e-signature. That is when you're going to click the e-sign button. When I click e-sign, it's going to walk me through, and you can just disregard this because you guys use DocuSign and not ZipLogic's digital ink. So it's going to walk you through the steps right here in the top blue or in this top bar. So all I have to do is click new, and it's going to pull up all the documents that I have. So I have to open up my working documents since I did a folder, but now I get to just select the documents that I need to send for signature. So let's say I need her signature on these two, and, you know, pick all of them that you need. Once I selected the ones that I want, I'll click close. And what I love is that it always has this 3-step guide at the top, so I know where I'm at in the process. So number 1 was select forms. Now I can change the packet name if I want to. I can say original PA signed by buyers. And then this is that return folder that I talked about. So if you took the time to create folders within your template, I can actually select one for those documents to come back to once they're signed. So in this case, I'm going to send it to my buyer, Nikki, for signatures.
Oh, gotcha.
Once
Okay.
she signs it, I can click that and then click done. And those documents will drop right into that folder so that I don't have to do that move once I go back to the folder and things are signed. Yeah, so here I've got my forms selected. They're all selected down here. And I am just going to click this next button in the top right corner. Oh, you know what? I've signed into so many people's DocuSigns recently. I've got to reconnect my accounts here. Give me just a second. Okay, so now it's going to take me to my second step. And this is where I was saying, if you have your admin put into your parties, they will appear in this list also. But what's nice is that anyone I've entered into that cover sheet, I put her first name, last name, I've got her email address already in here. All I have to do is select her and then click close. And then I'm going to go ahead and click the next button. And this is where it takes me seamlessly from Zipforms into DocuSign. And the best part about the integration between Zipforms and DocuSign is that if the document originated in Zipforms, so what I mean by that is the document was one of the ones that shared the information in Zipforms, like that purchase agreement, it had that blue banner at the bottom that said ZFX on it. If it originated in Zipforms, when it pulls over to DocuSign, all of those tags for your buyers or sellers will automatically be applied. So as I scroll down, you'll see her initial and signature and date tags are already on there. All I have to do is scroll through and make sure that they're good, or add any that I want to, delete any I don't want there, and click send. I don't have to go through and say, okay, I need her initials here. I don't have to come over to this box over here on the left-hand side and say, okay, now I need Nikki's initials, click initial, drop it here. and then go to the next page and do the next thing. And when you have multiple signers, you know how much time that takes you to do that on all 10 pages for 2 people. All I have to do is scroll through and make sure that everything looks good. And then I click send in the tab. I'm not going to send this to Nikki. But if I clicked send and Nikki got it and she signed it, because I chose that return folder, everybody still gets the notice from DocuSign with the attachments of the signed documents. But DocuSign and Zipforms speak together to the point where that signed document will then automatically be dropped back into my Zipforms file into the folder that I selected.
Seems like if you have 2 buyers, then it would go to the first buyer, then the second, it would advance to the second buyer, then come back to you.
So on the select parties section, if I had multiple people in there, you get to actually select signing order. So if I had selected
Okay.
more than just Nikki, it would give you the option to say who's number 1, who's 2, who's 3. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Great question. Anybody else have a question?
Yep, I'm good.
All right.
Thanks, Stacy, Nikki.
Problem. Thank you so much for joining.